I found the last podcast on LDL targets below 70 pretty shocking. I wondered whether Google's NotebookLM was hallucinating. So I ran the entire episode through a Google competitor, Perplexity, an AI engine known for its research capabilities. And I asked it a series of questions. And here are the most relevant and informative parts of Perplexity's response. Remember, neither I nor my AI assistants have medical degrees. These are a starting point for discussions with your doctor.
Google's NotebookLM, which created the last podcast, describes a mechanism by which soluble fiber lowers LDL. Elton asks, is that description accurate? Is that how it actually works? If you eat soluble fiber, you poop out the cholesterol?
Basically, yes. Soluble fiber binds bile acids in the gut, preventing their reabsorption. This promotes excretion of bile, forcing the liver to use circulating cholesterol to produce more bile acids, thus lowering LDL levels. This mechanism is a well-established concept in biochemistry and clinical nutrition, and is widely cited in scientific sources and major guidelines.
Elton also asks about the several studies quoted. Are the summaries accurate? He finds the summaries well shocking.
The podcast provides an accurate description of studies quoted, such as the 7-country study, Framingham Heart Study, and the Cholesterol Treatment Trialist Collaboration, CTT, are generally consistent with established scientific literature on LDL management and cardiovascular risk.
And how accurate was NotebookLM's description of these 3 studies?
The podcast accurately references 3 main pillars of LDL research. First, the observational studies, the 7-country study. Diets low in saturated fat, e.g. in rural Japan and in Crete, are associated with very low LDL and near zero rates of heart attacks, a widely reported finding. Second, the Framingham Heart Study demonstrated a stepwise increase in cardiovascular risk as LDL rises in the U.S. sample. This is foundational and commonly cited. And the third, the Cholesterol Treatment Trialist Collaboration, CTT, indicates a linear reduction in cardiovascular risk as LDL drops, with no lower threshold or floor where risk reduction stops. The cited statistic of 20% reduced risk for every 39-point drop in LDL is correct, and it matches major meta-analyses.
I did not know about the UCLA study. Perhaps that was the most shocking thing Google's dynamic duo found.
The discussion on normal LDL levels being misleading for the U.S. population is supported by several studies, including reports from UCLA showing that many heart attack patients had LDLs below then-current guideline cutoffs. The recommendation to compare with populations where heart disease is rare, LDLs of 50 to 70, is consistent with expert preventive cardiology advice, though clinical targets are sometimes set higher for practicality or risk stratification reasons. The podcast's science communication is direct, and although the tone may be dramatic, the core mechanisms of soluble fiber's effect on LDL and the quoted study results align well with current expert understanding in cardiometabolic health. However, clinical targets are sometimes set higher for practicality.
Did it just say that?
Clinical targets are sometimes set higher for practicality.
Clinical targets are sometimes set higher for practicality? Well, that practically left the right side of my body paralyzed forever. I then asked, the UCLA study found 75% of heart attack patients had LDL levels in the then normal or recommended range. At that time, what was the cutoff point? What was the safe level of LDL considered to be?
The UCLA study published in 2009 found nearly 75% of patients hospitalized for a heart attack had LDL levels below 130, which was the then current guideline threshold considered acceptable for many individuals without prior cardiovascular disease or diabetes.
Many patient portals still label LDL levels of 125 or 130 as standard. Well, they may be standard, but they're standard in a population where heart disease is the #1 killer. And some, at least one, patient portal states that your LDL must be 160 to be considered high. I was shocked. The research is pretty clear. Optimal LDL is below 70, not below 100, not below 125, and certainly not 160. The research is crystal clear, and apparently it has been for decades. Optimal LDL is below 70. I then asked Perplexity if the 75% of people who had heart attacks in LA with cholesterol, LDL, below 130, were actually sick because of other things, of smoking or doing drugs or something else. And here is how Perplexity answered my bit of speculation.
Almost all heart attacks and strokes are ultimately driven by plaque buildup. Plaque simply cannot form without cholesterol. That's why communities with low cholesterol have almost no heart disease at all. The recommendation to compare with populations where heart disease is rare, LDLs of 50 to 70, is consistent with expert preventive cardiology advice.
How did I not know any of this? This is the key sentence.
The recommendation to compare with populations where heart disease is rare, LDLs of 50 to 70, is consistent with expert preventive cardiology advice. That's why communities with low cholesterol have almost no heart disease at all.
Take out your phone right now and check your latest blood test. If your LDL is over 70, act now. Change your diet today. Get Dr. Greger's book, How Not to Die, and install the Daily Dozen app, and retest in 90 days. And if your LDL is still above 70, talk with your doctor about statins and other solutions. The science is clear. Lowering LDL saves lives. In future episodes, we'll show you powerful, practical ways to slash LDL and supercharge your health. Simple steps for living a longer, happier life. Remember, neither I nor my AI assistants have medical degrees. These are a starting point for discussions with your doctor and may not be appropriate for everyone. Remember to follow this podcast so that you see future episodes. This is Elton Sherwin. Stay safe and be healthy.